Good morning and welcome to Love Every Moment, coming to you today from Utica, New York. Today's verse is Romans 12:11. Not lagging behind in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. Now remember, at the beginning of Romans, it said that God's given us a certain amount of faith, and we are to exercise that faith because that's what's needed to serve the church. And it actually reminds me of a verse that we covered back in our series on 1 Peter, namely 1 Peter 4:10, which we covered over here. As each one has received a special gift, employ it in serving one another as good stewards of the manifest grace of God. And then verse 11, let's look at the middle of that. It says, whoever serves is to do so as one who is serving by the strength which God supplies. So we are to get busy with God's work and not be lazy about it and sit on our blessed assurance, okay? We need to get to the work that he's done. Not that a Christian can't recreate a little bit, but if there's a job for us to do that is needed in the church, by golly, we need to hit to it. Now, today's verse also reminds me of the parable of the talents, which is found in Matthew, starting Matthew 25:14. But before we hit that, I wanted to mention that the parable before the parable of the talents at the beginning of Matthew 25 is the parable of the 10 virgins, the 5 smart virgins and the 5 foolish virgins. And a lot of people think that the 5 foolish virgins were foolish because they didn't bring enough oil along with them on this journey to meet the master. But we find out the real reason at the end of that parable. And the real reason is they didn't know the master. If the master said, I don't know you. If they knew the master, they would have known what he expected of them, which was to bring some oil. So it wasn't the oil itself, it was knowing the master. Now, in the parable of the talents, all of the servants knew the master. But the last servant, even though he knew the master, didn't get busy with the work that the master expected him to do. But there's another point about that, and that is the master decided to give different amounts of talents to different servants based on their ability, based on the master's choice, and quite possibly based on the type of business he expected them to do with that money. And so one got 5 talents, one got 2 talents, one got 1 talent. There was no disparity there. That's just what the master chose to do. The one with 5 and the one with 2, they both doubled the investment, and the master praised them equally. And I'm convinced that if the last servant, the one with 1 talent, would have just gone about the business and doubled it as well, or at least got some interest, that he would have been praised as well. So if you are a busy person and maybe you don't have enough time to do a grand ministry for the church. Let's say, for example, you have some elderly parents that you need to care for, or maybe you have a special needs child that you have to care for, and you just don't have time for a great big program. That's understandable. The Lord may just give you 1 talent for the time being, and at least exercise that small amount that God has given you. I do like the churches that offer some sort of rotation so that you could just volunteer once a month to do parking lot duty or childcare, something like that. Now, I, and possibly you, as a full-time traveler, I don't really have that local church that I can plug into, so I need to minister more to the universal church. And so I donate to some international missionaries, and of course I'm working on these videos so you could benefit as well. But we all need to get busy. And why? Because the master loved us enough to give us the faith and the talents and the time, and so we need to love him back. And let's choose to love every moment, because then we're going to love every moment. I'm your average Dutch, and I hope you have a great week.